So Adam, I'm here. We are in our virtual studio together. It is so good to meet you. Thank you for making this happen, and welcome to Simply Folk.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be on here. It's great to meet you too. It's Simply Folk has been a part of my life since I was a little kid. I remember on Sunday nights, my mom would go grocery shopping, and I wouldn't go in grocery shopping. I would just sit in the car and listen to Simply Folk. And I remember thinking, why isn't this stuff on the radio all the time? This is the kind of music that I loved. I was naturally inclined, even at a young age to dig it. And so it's been a part of my life for a long time and the rest of the fellows at Horseshoes too.
I love hearing that, and I'm right with you because I also listened to Simply Folk as a child, and I have so many like memories of like I remember when I first heard that song and like recording with my little tape recorder. I'm sure illegally pressed up against
Yeah.
like my dad's speaker and like I mean I some of the like formative songs of my life came from that, and
Uh-huh.
thank goodness I was recording.
I feel like one of the first times I heard bluegrass, probably the first time I heard bluegrass would have been hearing Hot Rise. Yeah,
Nice.
for the first time.
Yeah.
And I think it was Colleen Malone.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
can remember that moment.
Wow. I mean, as you know, like Tim O'Brien is a pretty big feature on our
Yeah,
playlist.
for good reason.
Fantastic. So this is a great time to ask you, like, were you already playing music when you listened to Simply Folk, or is that like, was that part of getting you into it, or like, how did you go from listening to any kind of music, maybe including Simply Folk, to like, I'm gonna pick up an instrument?
Well, I would have been extremely young when I first heard Simply Folk. These are very early memories of my life. It would have been around the time that I first saw the Americana legends, the country rock and roll legends, Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. I saw them for my first time when, it's one of my early memories. And I remember falling in love with music, particularly this guy who's in their band named Ibby, Jimmy Ibbotson. He's the one who sang like Rippling Waters, and he was a very contagious, joyful stage presence. And I felt that that was so compelling because it made me feel so happy and it pulled me into this music, and I saw the way that people reacted to it, and it was like contrasting to the rest of my life and experiences up to that point. I'm like, whatever's going on here, this is it. And I remember having those feelings. And so that was kind of the beginning of my journey in love into, acoustic music, Americana folk music. Of course, the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, they were a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah.
And this part of the inspiration for this album that Horseshoes recently released was the simplistic recording concept that was kind of surrounding the Will the Circle Beyond Broken sessions.
Right on.
So
That's
it
so
goes
cool.
way
It's so
back to Nitty Gritty
refreshing.
Dirt Band.
That is so, it's so refreshing to hear that and to hear about that. I mean, it's not that I don't like, not that I don't fully appreciate like studio professional magic and like, okay, we're all isolated and soundless and this like that. I mean, I do appreciate the glory of that, but it's also just so refreshing to have somebody say, yep, we wanted to sit in a circle and record. I'm like, that is equally valid, if not more valid.
Well, in our process, and I think the process of a lot of bands as they go through time, we're 15 years this year, and this is I think our seventh studio album. And, there was a couple projects before that that are kind of out of print. But yeah, I think a band kind of goes through that, right?
Yeah,
You start to learn more and more about recording, and at some point, you become curious and interested about where you can take it, where you can use that studio magic. And then you also can go down a wormhole,
Yes.
that inevitably leads you back to an interest in recording in a more simplistic fashion. And to some degree, that happened with us. And, if we wanted to get into the story of this album, The Living Room, it certainly ties in to that kind of curve as a band and our experiences in recording.
And is that why it's called the living room?
So when we started as a band, we were going to the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. And it was 2009, 2010 that we first met. And we started playing, at house parties and bars and stuff around Point. And then it slowly expanded. And, we eventually were like, well, we should probably try to record an album. And so we kind of pieced together live show gear and maybe some friends had some microphones we borrowed and we went to our college house and we hung quilts on the windows and we gathered in the living room and
Oh,
we recorded our first little thing, which is it's out of print now. It's called Pigtails and Coffin Nails.
oh my, it's out of print. Oh goodness.
And, and they're somewhere out there, these copies, right? And because this would have been 2010, probably, maybe
Wow.
2011. And so in homage to that, and in thinking back to those days, especially celebrating this 15-year anniversary, we had the idea to go back and we went to my living room, which is in like the hill country, the driftless of Wisconsin, and right where I'm sitting right now.
Wow.
And we made this whole record sitting around the living room in chairs.
Wow. Fantastic. That
So we
is
went back to the way we'd all
so
started.
oh, and why not try everything, right? Like do that, do the studio, do like why do who wants to do everything the same every single time? Like who says that has to be done,
Right.
right? Like
Emmy Lou Harris, in that circle sessions, she says this something about the magic of putting the music back into the living room. And that's
oh,
another piece that sort of inspired us. Cause like if you've ever seen Horseshoes live, like a big part of the way that we interact and the way that we react to one another's playing is this visual thing. It's kind of like this dance. It's like, I don't know, birds or mating birds
yes,
or something like.
the emergent whatever.
Yeah,
Oh,
and so when you go isolate yourselves and maybe you're in different rooms or you can't see each other, you lose a little bit of that.
yeah.
And so doing it in this manner where I could touch Russell, he was right there and there was bleed in the microphones. It it just felt like more like honest and also collaborative than
Yes.
it's felt for a little bit. It was so cool to just be there with one another, laughing and feeling the same resonance off one another.
Because that's how you perform, right? You're not isolated when you're performing. You're standing there together in a pack, and
Right. And
that's what's natural and normal, right? Like,
if we had our druthers, we'd probably have all of our closest friends in the room with us too.
right, right. Oh, that is just awesome. And so 15 years. Wow. Do you I know we're talking mostly about your latest album now, but do you now we're thinking about, the beginnings too now that we're
Mhm.
celebrating anniversary. Do you remember by chance the first time, I know it can be a little murky, like, well, did that count as that performance? The first time you performed, like, do you remember like what was the first song? And if you don't, that's fine.
Uh,
That's totally fine. Or
it
anything.
would be like a batch of songs that I
Okay.
remember.
Got
And
it.
I think
Okay.
the other guys would say the same thing. It was like we had all come from different musical backgrounds. Some of us were more into jazz and some of us were more into like country and rock and like jam music and stuff. And then some of the guys were into like real old-timey stuff. And I think, Colin and Russ were definitely doing tunes like Sourwood Mountain and like CC Rider, I remember, and Roving Gambler and Prettiest Little Girl in the County-O. And I had come from a slightly more bluegrass oriented background. So I was more like 9 Pound Hammer and
Right.
these songs that I still love, we
Yeah,
all still love it. And every now and again we'll play some of them. Some of them have remained in our set list, but pretty quickly we all became interested in doing original music. We all became interested in songwriting. And so now, like on this last record, for instance, everybody has songs that they wrote, and it's just something we love doing because it's cathartic, I think, for us to write songs, and uh it's just neat to be able to bring these pieces of yourself, your collective, spirit as a band, but also who you are and bring it out to the world and be able to share that and hopefully have it help people on their dusty trail.
right on. And we hear a lot about that from listeners after the shows. Somebody will say, "Oh, thank you." It could even be a song you hadn't thought of particularly as being a particularly helpful song or uplifting, but it means something to somebody. And they're writing saying, "Thank you. It was just the right time. Like you have no idea. I needed to hear that tonight." And like you said, that's like part of the gift of this music thing.
Well, I remember, hearing Brother Wind by Tim O'Brien on Simply Folk for the first time and just being brought to tears. And of course, now we've played with Tim so many times, still get brought to tears every day, every time I hear that song.
Oh man. Well, I'm going to ask you about some songs on your new album, but since we're walking back through history, if we were to spin a song from, let's say, your very first album as a group, is there anything or anything in particular that comes to mind? All of them, none
Well,
of them.
it's winter time in Wisconsin.
All
And
right.
so there's a song, I think it might be the first song on Another Round, which was like our first, studio album that's out there in the world. It's called Tracks in the Snow.
Oh, how
And
perfect.
it might be the right vibe for the season.
So, what made, other than being from Wisconsin, as we all are, what made you write Tracks in the Snow?
Well, Russell wrote Tracks in the Snow. Russell was born up on the St. Croix River, Dresser, Wisconsin.
Oh,
Very,
that's
very,
awesome.
very much so a country fella.
Hmm.
And so, he's always loved getting out in nature, as folks who have listened to us quite a bit would know so many of the songs are nature oriented, and I
Right,
mean it
right.
makes good sense because us Wisconsinites, of course, we celebrate our state's natural beauty so much, and so many of our experiences are outside. So even unintentionally, our songs are just permeated by that part of our Scotty culture. And
Hmm.
like, there's a tune from the new album, a tune that I wrote called Wisconsin Moon,
Oh,
which was
I was going to
in
ask you about that. I'm going to confess right now that it's hard to choose, but that's at the very top for me on the new album.
Oh, thank you. It means a lot to me, that song. It came from a weekend that I spent on the farthest northern tip of Wisconsin, up near Herbster, which is up by like
Herbster.
Cornucopia,
Wow.
up by the Red Cliff
Oh yeah, yeah.
Reservation, and north of Bayfield, Big Top, all that. And um we had went there. It was right when Horseshoes was starting, actually. And it was one of those kind of soul searching, you're it was spring break, I think, of freshman year of college, and you're feeling like the world is opening up to you. And it was, one of those weekends that almost felt both exciting and frightening at the same time,
Hmm.
stepping out into the great beyond. And I remember kind of reaching this point of almost anxiousness and anxiety, thinking about, life path and things like that.
Good for
And
you. Like a lot of people at that age are not, I shouldn't say a lot, but perhaps some are not really thinking deep thoughts like
yeah,
that. I could be wrong.
we certainly were that weekend for sure. And I was up on this cliff looking over Lake Superior, and the big full moon rose up, and as it does when it comes up on the water. And it was just so special. And it in that moment, it just, as these things sometimes do in nature, a shooting star or the moon rising or the perfect sunset, kind of gives you this feeling of like affirmation that everything's gonna be okay, you know? And so
Beautiful.
that's
So,
sort of where that came from.
so you had that experience back as a freshman, and just now it's on you wrote about it in songs and
It slowly has come out, and that's the tune I
oh,
wrote with a couple friends of mine too, kind of recounting those experiences. And yeah,
beautiful. My husband's from Superior, and I don't think I've heard of Herbster, but I do know the magical far north
yes.
experience of being out there and there's nobody there but you and Lake Superior, and
Yeah. And that's where you sometimes get those, those cerebral moments where you wonder, you think about your direction. And in that case, it was nice to be there with close friends, to be able to have some of those discussions at some sounding boards.
right on. I love what you said about the your life permeating the music because it's so so different. Not to knock Nashville and all that whole scene. They do
Mhm.
beautiful work, but it's so different. Having the music come from you being permeated by your life is so different from somebody saying, this formula is going to work for the next number one, and we're going to do this. I mean, they make catchy songs that way, but I think it's kind of quite a different thing.
Yeah, and I'm attracted to that as well.
Mhm.
In other people's writing, there's so many. The upper Midwest is just like plumb full of songwriters, especially right now. It just feels like it's such a flourishing scene. I think of some of my friends who are also like my songwriting heroes, like Sarah Voss from Dead Horses and Joseph Huber and, Chicago Farmer and
Mhm.
Dave Simonette and Feeding Leroy and them Cooley Boys. And it just goes on and on. Like so many people who are writing in that nature, like writing based upon our experiences up here, and doing so in a way that is so relatable to all of us as listeners. It's such a special time up here for music.
It reminds me of a quote. I interviewed Jeffrey Foucault a number of years ago, and I asked him about recording quality, because we both share a love of archival music, and these somebody sitting on a porch with a banjo, and it's from a wax cylinder, and it's scratchy, and it's like, oh, how do will the audience be okay with it not being a top-notch Nashville recording? And he said something that I've never forgotten. He said, well, have you ever heard a good song you didn't like? I'm like, brother, that is the thing. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
if it's a beautiful song recorded to perfection in Nashville, you love it. If it's recorded on the back porch and it's a good song, you love it. And he just hit it on the head. Like, is it a good song? You know?
What's in the soul of the song?
Yeah,
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 that's beautiful. I love
yeah.
that too.
Thank you for the story of Wisconsin Moon. I just have loved that song so much from the moment I heard it. And there's a lot to talk about with as many albums as you lads have put out. Tell us about another highlight from your last 15 years, whether it was on the road, on stage, in the studio, a writing moment of inspiration. I know there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, it's we've it can be hard to pinpoint those types of things. There was several years there, where when things kind of first accelerated, we were still going to college there, and we would somehow figure out how to leave college and go do shows, and then at the very end, we were on straight up tours while finishing college. I mean, it was a very bonkers time period, but it took us on these crazy rides and we met so many of our heroes. We've continued to meet them. Like, we toured a lot with Green Sky Bluegrass and with Infamous String Dusters and the McCurries and Yonder Mountain String Band and Leftover Salmon, of course. And that led us to, like, we got to do the Mother Church of Country Music at the Ryman, which I'll never forget. We got to do Red Rocks, which was crazy, and just festivals all over the place. But I'm often reminded that it's the nights that you least expect to be magical that sometimes end up being the most magical. These or just they end up being the most special. It's the small festival that you weren't so sure about when you were driving in, but then you end up having the most fun show you've had all year. And it's the people that come, because live music is so much about this, like, kind of exchange of energy. Like, you show up on this stage and it can be the most immaculate, gorgeous location, but if the right folks aren't there that make this circle of energy happen, then it just never really achieves liftoff.
Oh, that's so well put.
And then, like, these nights that it does, you're just like in disbelief that you get to make music for in this kind of place for these kinds of people, and you're just so grateful for it. And so I think everybody in the band just remains genuinely thankful to get to play music with, four of our best friends, and then also get to have people who want to come to the show and want to be part of a music community and have a good time.
Yeah, it reminds me of what we were talking about regarding, whether you're recording in separate rooms or together. So you've got that energy of, being together side by side. And then, like you said, well, there's more to that electromagnetic equation. And then there's the audience. And if you are open to them, sometimes it can feel not as much as it used to, but back in the days before there were such rich opportunities to go see people in intimate settings, you could feel this great divide between the performer and the audience member. And there's this almost like a class system, and it
Yeah.
created this invisible wall, not always but sometimes. And I just love hearing of situations where, okay, we are all here together, you're feeling us, we're feeling you. And that's another part of that energy. And like you said, you still can't plan on it. You can
Yeah.
go to one a dark little comfortable homey bar one night, and it's just kind of nothing's happening, and then the next night it's just great. And what does that mean? We'll never know probably, but that's why it's magic, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that, like, that divide that you're talking about between the crowd and the band, it's not real to begin with, right? Like,
So true.
it's we're all together. And that's something that Horseshoes has um always tried, actually not even tried. It's always just kind of been part of the way that we are, because we're five friends who ended up being in this band and doing the traveling around playing music thing, and so on stage that doesn't go away, you know. It's still just us up there being buddies and having a good time, and yeah, it's a special thing to be part of.
You had I've been, you can tell in the writing about you guys and in the way you present yourselves that there's just so much love and so much camaraderie amongst yourselves, between you and the audience. What happens when people start having babies?
Yeah.
Because you can have all this love and love will triumph in the end, but like, oh my goodness, when someone has a newborn to take care of, how do you keep trucking on?
Love can also create kids, in fact.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, in our instance, it's just been part of our continual growth and our continual practice in being flexible with one another and trying to work our way through the puzzle and the cobwebs of life as we know it. And so, yeah, when there's now a total of six horseshoe kiddos,
Oh, six mini horseshoes.
it's wild. I know it's gonna just get crazier as time goes on, and I love it. At first it was admittedly like anxiety inducing, specifically for me, being one of the fellows who has not yet had kids, and just growing up in these really formative years with horseshoes being such a big part of like my identity. And then that slowing down, it was like sort of a identity crisis of sorts. You're like, oh my gosh, we're not going to be playing 200 and some shows a year. It's a wild feeling. But over time, as always seems to happen in life, I discovered that it was exactly what was supposed to happen.
Oh,
And I think we've all found that too. Like it's now we play fewer shows, but like every time we walk on stage, we're just so stoked to be doing it. And you look at these bands like just a couple of them. Like we already brought up Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, who I think is celebrating their 60th anniversary, and the Grateful Dead having such a long career, and even like the Seldom scene. And sure, like some of these bands have changed members and stuff, but one of the key ingredients to those bands is just having flexibility with one another. And that's been a big goal for us, and it's easy because there's friendship there. So now we do fewer shows, but we're still making these records, and we focus on the Midwest and some places that we still have a like larger fan bases, like out in Colorado and the Pacific Northwest, and St. Louis, and California, and just stuff like that, where we're able to still go visit occasionally. And I don't know, it's just been really, really fun. And of course, the songwriting and the experience has changed too, because of these youngsters. But also everybody's really happy to, get to experience that. And we're happy for one another.
oh, you have to put out a new kids album like Colt shoes and M80s or something.
That's actually like a pretty good idea. Yeah, Garcia and Grisman had the not only for kids record. That was pretty
Right,
cool.
right. Oh, well, speaking of like travels and stuff, I'm sure that your travels have probably just brought so many rich experiences to your lives. Have
Mhm.
there been like incidents or good or bad, I suppose, in your travels that inspired a song? If
Hmm.
not, that's okay. I'm just like, that one time we
Well,
all got robbed and then we were no.
there's certainly that stuff can be hard to remember without something coming up that triggers a thought.
Sure.
But, something that I'm reminded of with the context of kids is that, we're in the process of making this album Living Room. We were trying to figure out songs. And Colin was like, Colin's our fiddle player, awesome singer, awesome songwriter. And he was like, man, he's like, I haven't had like time to like, I haven't really been like writing songs. Like, I don't know what to like, there's not really anything there. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And me and Russ kind of looked at him and we're like, well, play us like snippets or something that you've been like thinking about. Like, do you have like some half-written songs or something? He's like, well, I probably got something like they're not good, you know. Well, of course he starts playing them and they're like really cool.
Fantastic.
And and Russ and I are like, dude, that's perfect. He's like, well, there's not like a no, there's only a verse or something. It's like, doesn't matter. This is great. And one of those tunes, which I love telling that story because, it's possible this song would have never seen the light of day. And it ended up being the first song on the album, and it's called Fleeting Time. And um, it just, to me, it speaks to a lot of feelings that I've been having, and I think perhaps some of the other members have been having too, just about this kind of odd feeling of going from being like the super young band on the scene, and then now 15 years down the road, not so much having that feeling anymore, but it still feels like it was like yesterday that we were driving around in Harmonica Davies' parents' minivan, Aunt Darlene, and just like with like pieces of the van dragging in the back, that feels like yesterday, but also now we're like, there's six Horseshoes kids, and it's a different thing. So I think that's a beautiful tune that Colin wrote, and it's pretty cool that it's on the record.
I'm so glad you highlighted that one because that was on my list to ask you to talk about in case you didn't already. But
I love that song.
oh man, and good choice for number one song too. I mean, they're all just. I mean, I don't know. Does it? This is something I had asked Jeffrey Focal about. Like, um, do people? I still think in terms of album, like the album. Like
I do
what's gonna
too.
go in one? What's gonna be two? What do to me, it's about. I'm just that's how old I am. I'm always gonna think in terms of flow of an album. Obviously, today some people are thinking in terms of singles. But how do you guys approach an album? Do you care one way or the other? I mean, obviously, we all think we should probably put a really strong song in number one position, or maybe your most meaningful song, or maybe just one that lifts people up. Like, do you, when you're talking amongst yourselves in the band to try to decide, hey, how do we put this album together? Do those things factor in?
Well, I'm right with you, Sheila, and I think like the rest of the band is too. Like we still love the large format. Like we love vinyl records. Like I listen to vinyl mostly. It's just like what I enjoy. I like the liner notes. I like all that stuff.
It's big.
And it's yeah, exactly. I want the big thing. Uh, it's hard to roll a doobie on an MP3. Uh, Uh, but for horseshoes, we love that. And so yeah, we think pretty deeply about the track listing and how that ebbs and flows, and certainly like a little bit of that has to do with tempos and making sure there's kind of an ebb and a flow there, kind of like the way life is, up and down, yeah. But another one is, from a musical standpoint, like sometimes I feel like certain keys of songs go well next to each other and others don't. And I can sometimes hear that. It sounds like um energy of the record has a lot to do with it.
Mhm.
For me, like the way that I feel as an album progresses is important to me. So like Perhaps like a song such as Wisconsin, or such as Preoccupied, which is a song that Sammy wrote. He's our bass player, also a wonderful singer and a wonderful songwriter, and a really good farmer too, south of
But
Milwaukee.
hey, gotta have your
He's a
priorities.
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy and super talented in many ways, but he wrote this tune called Preoccupied that has a lot of themes relating to kind of the socio-political climate that we're in right now. And that stuff, like many of us, it's really important to him. And he is somebody who has the gumption to put it out there in song and write about it. And it can be very hard to do. It can be hard to write those types of songs with tact. So of course that song, it's in the minor key, and it's heavy. You get done with it and you kind of go, and you take a deep breath. And so we couldn't help but follow it up with the goofiest song on the record, which is called Crustacean Invasion. And it's a tune that Davy Lynch wrote. And basically, it's about having your house or your state or your country invaded by crustaceans. And I think it stems from his love of crawfish boils.
Oh,
Um, so it's very funny and very silly, and then like the last song, we take it down to this very stripped down tune that we all wrote together called Red Bridge, which is a story as well, of course. Uh,
but I wanted to get back to something you said about preoccupation, being kind of heavy. I mean, these are heavy times, we can't can't escape that fact, and we've all lived through. You're probably not old enough to have lived through the Vietnam years, but I remember certain heavy times when it felt like we were all in a heavy time together. The Vietnam War was one of them, thinking that we were all going to get nuked. When
mhm.
I'm going through high school, yep,
Cold
we
War,
could
yeah.
be nuked at
Yeah.
any moment. Very heavy. Now we're in a really, like, this is possibly the heaviest I have felt as an adult anyway. Um, so thank you all for writing to heavy times, and we're grateful. I think that is, it's not that we're bound to do it, but I think we feel compelled to do it to address the times when you folks were putting together Preoccupied. What were you feeling? What were you thinking about the role this song was going to have in your performances and on your album? And
Well, when we were recording, those things were just sort of starting. And so it felt like, oh my, like this is oddly applicable, right now. And maybe Sam was recognizing those themes, before they became more popularly understood.
I see.
But at some point, it hit us all like, wow, this song isn't it's important right now to us, and probably to a lot of people who are going to hear it. Now, we played that live in Minneapolis on January 16th, which was the day of the album getting released, but also a couple days after uh, Renee Good passed away. So it's become, uh, let me just put it this way, on stage it was, and then in the crowd there was this overwhelming feeling going on. And you hope that that overwhelming feeling might be some sort of sense of catharsis for people. Um,
We need that
because
sound.
because the one of the beautiful elements of music and folk music is that it has the ability to make the good times better and the bad times bearable.
So well
And
put.
you hope as a songwriter, as a band, that your your music might be able to help somebody.
Right on. And it's such a the role of what we call folk music, it's a big umbrella in speaking to the times is pretty sacred at this point.
Hmm.
And so, blessings to you all for doing what you have done with that, and acknowledging and speaking to the heavy things too. I can't imagine what it must have been like to perform that on January 16th.
And uh, hopefully as time rolls on, uh, we'll all be able, to look back and feel like we helped one another get through this time period.
Yes, I have
And
no doubt that your music and the music of other people who are putting this into their music is doing just that. And we also have to survive by lifting our spirits when we can, and so the crustacean invasion certainly did that. And I feel that way too. You can only stay, you do need to have heavy stuff, but then you also need to let people breathe. And I thought that was such a beautiful choice to have crustacean invasion come next. And
I
who
remember, I
wrote
remember,
that?
well, and I will say, I remember we did that in Minneapolis too, in that order. And there was definitely a sense, there was a lot of laughter and relief. And I think that is important. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think in folk music, that's one of the beauties of it all, that there is so many different themes and so many different pieces of the human experience to explore. And surely we need to get silly every now and again too. The last tune on the record is this crazy, it's kind of a crazy story too. I grew up north of Stevens Point, Wisconsin. Uh, there's a place there. It's on the Wisconsin River. It's called Red Bridge. And as a young kid, I would walk down there from the house and I would fish like underneath the bridge. But it was also kind of a place where I would go to kind of get away from the world. You could kind of nuzzle underneath the bridge and fish and hang out. And um, it just became like a really important place for me, and it's an important place for that whole neighborhood. It's called Cashmere Road. And anyhow, once I got to know the rest of the band, Russ, Colin, and Dave, they were a year older than Sam and I, and got to know them, freshman year, and came to realize that this place that I had grown up with was also a place where these guys had been like developing their friendship. It was like a super special place for them. They would leave campus and come hang out at Redbridge. And so it was kind of like I talk a lot about like affirming moments. And because I think a lot about that. Think about the path you're on and these things happen. It just makes you feel like you're in the right place. And so yeah, we discovered Redbridge was a thing for all of us, and we kind of had this song floating around for the last 15 years, and we finally decided that maybe we should put it on a record, and we all kind of sang a verse that we wrote. And yeah, it's
So
just a really special thing.
you all wrote a verse to this song.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
how lovely is that?
Yeah, so Redbridge is a special one for us, but the whole record, like, it takes I think it takes people through like kind of a wide range of emotions. There's like some really contemplative stuff, that I think comes from this time in our lives where we're all in our mid 30s, like our worlds are changing and the way we see the world is changing. And of course, the world itself is drastically changing. We're kind of in this moment with the way technology is and the way things are socially. Everything's just it's just quickly changing, and so there's some themes like that, and then there's, some kind of old horseshoe spirit type songs like Ribs and Taters, where, it's like about partying in the kitchen, which was certainly a big theme for us for a number of years, and less so now. Uh, but yeah, it's fun, like I said earlier, to explore the different parts of the human experience just in one record, and kind of take people on that ride.
Well, I am so looking forward to introducing our Simply Folk audience to that journey. And I can tell already right now that I would like to end the interview by playing Red Bridge. But is there anything else you want to let us know? It's been so wonderful visiting with you and hearing some of the lore and meaning behind all of this. Is there anything else you'd like to let the audience know about horseshoes and hand grenades and your current stage in your journey?
Well, I had a couple things written down that both Dave and Sam said. Davey mentioned to me, yeah, good music and recording was the goal, but not the object. During the recording, I got to stop trying and start doing, stop remembering and start reminiscing, stop building and start creating, stop pushing and pulling and start lifting, stop the clock of life that is mortality and put songs out there that someone, no matter who, might enjoy tomorrow, next year, or long after we're gone. And Sam also added, after all this time, we just can't help but continue our deeply honest and still ever innocent starry adventure. These songs aren't my or your creations, they're ours. And those quotes meant a lot to me, and I thought that they were spot on. And I always am so grateful to get to make music with the other four dudes in horseshoes, and we'll be out continuing to do the thing. I know we've got a Stoughton Opera House show coming up in late April, and we'll be at a beautiful place, which is actually right up the road from where we recorded the album, called the Pierce Hill Performing Arts Center, which is in Viroqua. But we've got a whole Turner Hall on St. Patty's Day weekend in Milwaukee, I know. Green Bay, I believe, on March 27th at the Meyer Theater. And then we'll have a bunch of festivals that we're announcing too. So we're gonna keep on trucking, and pretty soon the Horseshoe Babies will probably start a band.
Well, I'm going to call you not only a band, but gentlemen poets.
Oh, sweet of you.
Adam, thank you so much. This has been just a delight. And we'll do it again. We'll continue to let the audience know where you're going to be and when you're going to be. And, when you're celebrating your 20th anniversary or your 16th, come on back and we will visit again. And thank you so, so much.
Appreciate Simply Folk. We appreciate you and Jeff, and it's always a blast listening to the show. And thanks to everybody who listens and supports it as well. It's really important to us Midwestern musicians.